Imagine landing in a country where the tarmac is rolled out with lavender-scented carpets. Not red, lavender, because red carpets are too cliché when you're being welcomed like a king. The year is 2017. The man stepping off the private jet is Donald J. Trump. And the place? Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This wasn't just a state visit, it was a coronation of influence, wrapped in gold, scented with oud, and served with a multi-trillion-dollar side of ambition. Before the engines of Air Force One even cooled, Trump was already being ushered into palaces that looked like scenes from a Disney movie. If the movie had been directed by an oil sheik with an unlimited budget and a soft spot for Versace upholstery. There were gold-plated elevators, Swarovski chandeliers, bigger than New York apartments, sword dances, falcon shows, and dinners where the only thing more excessive than the menu was the guest list. And then came the gifts. Oh, the gifts. The Saudis didn't just offer tokens of appreciation, they offered symbols of status. We're talking custom gold-plated Tesla Cybertrucks, luxury watches that make Swiss timepieces look like cereal box prizes, and private jets outfitted with Gucci leather seats. Even the dates served at dinner were wrapped in edible gold foil, because if you're going to eat fruit, it might as well sparkle. But beyond the spectacle, this royal treatment was all part of a bigger play, the art of the very expensive deal. At the heart of it all was a historic investment package, the largest of its kind in history. Trillion. With a T, that's enough money to buy every single NFL team twice over, and still have enough left to build a real-life Wakanda. Fun fact, during that trip, Trump's image was projected on the side of the Ritz-Carlton Riyadh, alongside King Salman. It was the kind of PR that even Hollywood couldn't fake. And yes, the hotel staff began referring to the presidential suite simply as the King's Room. The deal wasn't just about arms and oil, it was about artificial intelligence, infrastructure, media partnerships, and a vision for a future that looks a lot like Dubai on steroids. Saudi Arabia was on a mission to reinvent itself from a desert empire to a futuristic superstate, and it wanted the world to know it had America's former commander-in-chief on speed dial. Trump's admiration for the Dubai lifestyle wasn't exactly a secret either. Luxury, excess, showmanship, it's practically his brand DNA. So when he walked through the marble halls of the Emirates or sat down for tea beneath ceilings painted like the Sistine Chapel, it wasn't diplomacy. It was synergy. In the UAE, the mood was no different. At a private event in Abu Dhabi, Trump reportedly met with regional billionaires in a venue where the chandeliers were made of baccarat crystal, and the Wi-Fi passwords were changed hourly for national security. According to insiders, discussions included not just investment, but branding, Trump-style resorts, golf courses, and possibly even a Trump Tower Riyadh. Because nothing says diplomacy like putting your name on a skyscraper in the desert. And Qatar? They didn't want to be left out. The tiny but immensely rich state rolled out its own velvet welcome, with beachfront mansions, diamond-studded falcon statues, and high-stakes talks over Wagyu steak flown in from Japan the same day. This wasn't just hospitality, it was luxury diplomacy, Middle Eastern style. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. This wasn't just about flattering an ex-president, it was about reshaping global alliances. With China rising, Russia flexing, and the West wobbling, Gulf leaders saw an opportunity to cozy up to someone who could open doors in Washington, Wall Street, and beyond. Trump wasn't just a former politician. He was a walking brand, a symbol of influence, a potential bridge between old oil money and new tech empires. Fun fact, during that opulent tour, Donald Trump's image wasn't just featured in headlines. It was literally projected onto the side of the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, right alongside King Salman's. The massive LED display lit up the night sky like a blockbuster movie premiere, showing the two leaders shoulder to shoulder, an unmistakable symbol of alliance, admiration, and, frankly, extravagance. It wasn't just diplomacy, it was branding. Locals and visiting dignitaries gathered outside the hotel, snapping photos of what felt like a historical billboard. For a moment, it seemed Trump had been adopted into the House of Saud's visual narrative, like an honorary monarch. The projection didn't just impress guests, it made headlines around the globe and sent a very deliberate message. Trump wasn't just visiting, he was being celebrated. And inside the hotel, the Ritz-Carlton staff reportedly began referring to the presidential suite as the King's Room, not because a monarch was staying there, but because Trump's stay had reset the standard. Rumor has it, the room was refreshed with Trump's preferred brand of fast food in a silver cloche, extra-long red carpets, and custom American flags embroidered with gold trim. Even the turn-down service was allegedly upgraded for the occasion. Scented with oud, draped in lavender petals, and flanked by monogrammed slippers bearing the initials DJT. In the world of elite hospitality, that wasn't just five-star service. It was a coronation in disguise. Back in the U.S., critics called it over the top. He's being played, they said. But was he? Or was everyone just playing the same game with different rules? Because while the gold and glitter made headlines, the real story was the paperwork. Billions in contracts signed. Defense deals are locked. Partnerships inked, and a clear message sent to the rest of the world. America may be uncertain about its future, but Trump wasn't. Behind the scenes, something subtle, but revolutionary, was happening in the Gulf. Diplomacy was no longer just about closed-door discussions and formal communiques. It was being redesigned, rebranded, and reimagined around the aesthetics and extravagance of the Dubai lifestyle. This wasn't just foreign policy, it was foreign pageantry. Summits now opened with holographic light shows instead of speeches. Trade talks took place in sky lounges instead of sterile boardrooms. Heads of state met not over coffee, but over Michelin-star tasting menus in private desert resorts, accessible only by helicopter. It was the kind of diplomacy where a dress code could include Rolexes and designer Candoras, and where deals were finalized under the glow of chandeliers made entirely of Swarovski crystals. And Dubai wasn't just setting the tone, it was setting the standard. This city, once a sleepy port with pearl divers and sand dunes, had transformed itself into a living, breathing showroom for futuristic opulence. It became a soft power empire made of mirrored towers, man-made islands, and record-breaking everything, from the tallest skyscraper to the deepest diving pool. Its malls have aquariums, its fountains dance to opera, and its real estate brochures look more like sci-fi scripts than urban planning documents. Need to hold a bilateral meeting? Why not inside an underwater restaurant surrounded by sharks? Want to host a cultural exchange? Rent out an artificial Venice complete with gondoliers flown in from Italy. This is the new language of influence in the Gulf, visual, experiential, and wildly theatrical. Even media coverage began to reflect this shift. Instead of policy briefings, press were invited to influencer-packed galas. Instead of dry economic forecasts, countries released promotional videos with Hollywood-style drone cinematography. Diplomacy had gone Instagrammable, and Dubai was the prototype. And Donald Trump? He didn't just observe this transformation, he absorbed it. He saw how Dubai turned luxury into leverage, how spectacle became a political tool, how image, when elevated to an art form, could make a city more influential than a nation-state. Trump, already a reality TV master and branding mogul, was watching the geopolitical equivalent of The Apprentice, billionaire edition, play out, and he wanted in. He began aligning himself with this new model, not by drafting white papers or hosting think tanks, but by showing up where it mattered. In the penthouses, on the red carpets, inside the golden corridors of the Gulf elite. Because in this new diplomatic order, policy papers might be optional. But presence, style, headlines, those were non-negotiable. Behind the scenes, Gulf nations began modeling their diplomacy around the Dubai lifestyle. Meetings became more theatrical. Deals were closed over caviar brunches and yacht parties. Even policy announcements were now made via luxury events with drone light shows and celebrity influencers. And speaking of Dubai, let's not forget its role in all this. With its indoor ski slopes, police forces driving Lamborghinis, and dispensing gold bars, Dubai became the blueprint for how the ultra-wealthy want the world to look. It's not just a city, it's a vision board for billionaires. And Trump? He wasn't just admiring it, he was getting inspired. Trump once considered launching a golf tournament across Middle Eastern deserts called the Sand Slam. The tagline? Where every hole is a hole-in-one if you believe hard enough. It never happened, but in that world, it almost made sense. Today, the legacy of that trip still echoes. Saudi Arabia is pushing forward with its $500 billion NEOM megacity project, a sci-fi-inspired metropolis with robotic maids, flying taxis, and a coastline that makes Monaco look like a swimming pool. And behind the glossy brochures and digital renderings, you'll find echoes of Trump's golden aesthetics and branding bravado. Meanwhile, Trump's relationship with the Gulf continues quietly. Though out of office, his business ties remain strong. His sons have visited frequently. Deals continue to be discussed. And if rumors are true, the Trump Oasis Resort may be the next glittering jewel in the desert. And through it all, one question lingers. Was this just a moment of indulgence, or a glimpse into the future of diplomacy, where deals are sealed with fireworks and foreign policy wears designer shoes? Because, in a world where influence is sold like perfume and power travels by private jet, maybe the real kings aren't the ones who sit on thrones, but the ones who get the lavender carpet treatment and a multi-trillion-dollar welcome. The total amount of gold used in the decor for Trump's visit could have funded a public school for a year in a small U.S. town. Priorities, right? Love him or loathe him, Donald Trump understood something vital about the modern world. Appearances matter. In an era where attention is currency and perception is power, he mastered the art of making headlines, not with policies, but with spectacle. He didn't just show up, he arrived. He didn't just attend meetings, he turned them into performances. And in the Gulf, where luxury is language and gold is grammar, that lesson wasn't just appreciated, it was celebrated. From Riyadh to Dubai, from Doha to Abu Dhabi, the region wasn't just hosting a political figure. They were hosting a symbol, a walking, talking brand of wealth, bravado, and unfiltered ambition. For Gulf royals seeking to blend tradition with modern image-making, Trump was more than a guest. He was a mirror, one that reflected their own aspirations of influence, affluence, and global relevance. The lavender carpets weren't just for show. The glowing orb, the sword dances, the billion-dollar contracts, they were all carefully choreographed pieces of a broader pageant. One that said, "This is how diplomacy looks now." Not with quiet handshakes in dull offices, but with drone shows, influencer receptions, and deals announced in gold-embroidered halls. And Trump? He didn't flinch. He understood the rhythm. He spoke the language. Not Arabic, but the language of luxury, the language of symbolism, of spectacle. Because in this new geopolitical stage, substance and showmanship have become inseparable. Leaders are now influencers. Summits are media events. And diplomacy? It's often just branding with a national flag. In the end, Trump's visit wasn't just a chapter in his political journey. It was a moment of cultural convergence, where the American dream met the Arabian fantasy, where the world's flashiest businessman met the world's richest monarchs. And in that shimmering overlap, a $3.2 trillion deal was born. He didn't need a crown. He already had the spotlight. And in that part of the world, sometimes that's all it takes to be treated like a king.